Hey peeps, it's Ellie, here with some more Voltron, Legendary Defender, Unexpected Dilemma, Chapter 2, Lava. Frustrated, Lance growled deep in the back of his throat when he was, oh so rudely, interrupted by Keith shouting into his comms. Seriously, Lance wondered, what is his problem? Unfortunately, Lance couldn't verbally vent his annoyance, as he could make no sound at all. Even as he growled earlier, no sound escaped his throat. Apparently, during the crash, he had injured his vocal cords when a large piece of shrapnel flew across his throat. He gingerly traced a jagged cut on his neck, blood trickling down the side and flowing into his armor, staining the pale plate a dusty red. Lance sighed, taking a deep breath, using a moment to calm himself and his frustrations. First things first, he needed to stop the bleeding. Luckily, every lion was equipped with a standard Altean first aid equipment. Staying up to retrieve the bandages, Lance's foot slipped in a puddle of his sweat. That's when he noticed the intense heat, even through his temper-regulated armor. He could feel the disgusting trails of sweat dripping down the side of his face and every other part of his body, collecting on the floor of the cockpit. He moved his hand to wipe away the sweat, threatening to slip into his eyes, only to have it bonk against the side of his helmet. Right! My helmet's on and the visor's down. He remembered that with the helmet fully covering his face, there was no way to access it unless he deactivated it via the control panel. Worried that the atmosphere wouldn't be human-friendly, Lance refrained from removing his helmet, even if the sweat was giving his cleanliness instincts the heebie-jeebies. Even in the helmet, Lance's breath became panty-breaths. Okay, I need to know where I land to figure out why the temperature regulator broke. I hope I can fix it. Temporarily forgetting about getting the bandages, Lance turned and patted the dashboard. I'll be right back, Lou, he lovingly thought before meandering over to the emergency exit. As the lions were offline, they couldn't open their mouths, which was a function reserved for the lions themselves. The paladins could only leave through an emergency hatch located in the ceiling just behind the pilot seat. Lance quickly scaled the ladder and opened the hatch with a flick of his wrist. He peeked out and was instantly blasted with a wave of superheated hot air. He gasped at the suddenly rising temperature, sweat rolling down his face in sheets, pulling at the bottom of his helmet. Ugh, gross, Lance whined in his head as he quickly scanned the area, trying to get a better gauge of where he was. Lance gurgled, not good, so very not good. Blue was currently draped over the rim of an active volcano, her forelimbs dangling towards the magma. Dark forest-green lava bubbled and boiled in the crater, slowly rising, as smoke plumed out in dark, ominous waves. Suddenly, with a rumble, the rocks underneath Blue gave away a little, and Blue shifted forward towards the hot green lava, causing Lance to shriek. Well, his mouth opened and his arms flailed, but no sound escaped his lips. Quickly, before Blue could shift again, Lance scampered up and bolted out of the hatch. He sprinted across Blue's back. Blue shifted again, slipping and sliding forward, emitting a sharp shriek of metal scraping rock. Lance stumbled a bit, but regained his balance. Before urging his legs on faster, pouring on the fastest spurt of speed in his life. Heart thumping in his chest and lungs begging for air. Even if the helmet regulated oxygen, it wasn't much help if disconnected from the pump. Lance was almost to the edge of a crater, a few steps from relative safety, when Blue tumbled forward, completely dislodged from her perch, rocks cascading down in a shower around the lion. Lance screamed, throat straining to produce noise before launching himself off his lion's armor and slamming into the rock ledge of the crater. He clawed at the black stone, gloved hands struggling to find any purchase. He could feel himself slipping, the fabric tearing, exposing his cocoa-brown fingers, straining to grab onto the slick volcanic rocks as debris rained down. Suddenly, Lance's chipped nails dug into a crack along the dried, molten rock, and he was able to haul himself up. Once he secured a more stable position for himself and wasn't about to fall, he whipped his head behind him, only to see the fleeting image of Blue cascading down the inner side of the volcano. Blue! He screamed mentally. He visibly cringed as he saw Blue crash into a protrusion of rock, denting the already smoke-stained metal before ricocheting off and rolling the rest of the way down to the side of the crater. Lance whimpered as he saw his beloved Blue slip into the lava pooled at the bottom of the volcano, a small splash erupting from where she fell in, droplets of green lava raining down in a shower. No, 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 Blue! Lance sobbed, tears pricking at the back of his eyes. He took a shaky breath, eyes trained on the spot in the dark green lava below where Blue had fallen, lava bubbles popping and spurting to mark her imprisonment. Blue. Lance swallowed back his wine, closing his eyes to keep his tears at bay. A watery laugh with no sound escaped as he thought of a joke. Love you, Blue, but not enough to take a lava bath with you. Even that terrible joke did nothing to alleviate his grief. A sudden rumble caused him to open his eyes again. The lava in the crater was rapidly bubbling, and the heat intensified. In horror, Lance realized it was going to erupt. Panic seized him as he cowered against the rock wall, muzzles frozen stiff, before scampering as fast as possible over the lip of the crater to the mountain slope on the other side. Another rumble sent him skidding down the side of the mountain. His heart pounded a staccato beat in his chest as his lungs gasped for air, muscles yearning and screaming for the chance to stop. Lance sprinted onwards, slipping and sliding as he lost traction on loose gravel. Another rumble shook the ground, heavier than before, causing Lance to stumble, scrambling to stay upright on his feet. Lance almost regained his footing when the heel of his boot caught the edge of a pulpous rock, and he tumbled forward. Instinctively he curled, performing a sloppy somersault before landing on his feet. It would do him no good if he fell now. Not with an active volcano spewing smoke and ash behind him. Fear filled his eyes, and he knew that if he fell now, he might never get up again. A booming roar, accompanied by a terrifying rumble of earth quaking, caused Lance's legs to skid out from underneath him. He landed ungracefully onto his side, knocking the wind out of his lungs with a great big whoosh. Luckily, his armor mostly protected him, but as the quake grew, Lance tumbled down the mountainside, bashing into sharp rocks over and over. All Lance knew was that he could see a flash of silver sky before slamming into black volcanic rock as he tumbled. Pain was all Lance could register at the moment as his body rolled to a stop at the base of the volcano. Dizzily sitting up, Lance felt his stomach gurgling with displeasure. Lance groaned silently. Great, I now know what it feels like to be a hunk. He sat there a couple of moments, attempting to catch his breath. He opened his eyes and stared up blinkingly at the cloudy gray sky. Suddenly he saw a flaming stone blasting across the sky, leaving a trail of blazing light. A comet! He gasped silently in awe. Celestial bodies never failed to impress them. Hell, he even went to the Galaxy Garrison for them. Then he saw another one. Wait, how the Quiznak can I see them? The sky was covered with thick gray clouds, not a stripe of sky to be seen. Yet Lance had clearly seen a flying meteor. Then an enormous rumble that even jolted his bones sounded, and he glanced up alarmed. Oh, just some flaming rocks. Lance relaxed minutely, before his eyes widened comically wide. They weren't comics. Oh, no. They were flippin' flaming rocks! The meteors were erupting with increasingly frequency from the volcano. Lance saw rivers of green lava leaking from in between cracks in the lava from the volcano, spilling over the edge of the crater, raging like a flood towards him. Lance leapt to his feet, his body screaming in protest, blue armor stained to an almost unrecognizable gray color. Then he booked it as fast as he could camper, head spinning without proper oxygen, lungs rattling with lack of air. His whole body felt like it was being stabbed with pins and needles in almost every muscle. But he didn't dare stop. Stopping would mean certain death. And he was too young to die! Vaguely in the distance, Lance could make out tall, luscious purple forest rippling in the wind. Sprinting turned into a harsh affair as Lance felt debilitating vibrations in the ground as the flaming meteors slammed into the soil all around him, threatening to squish him. It felt like one giant game of, "Hey, Mother Nature! Let's kill Lance for fun!" As the lava flowed faster and faster, creeping up on him, Lance used his jetpack intermittently to stay ahead. The forest steadily grew before him, becoming a gigantic presence looming over him. With one final push, Lance propelled himself headlong into the trees, only to notice the gorge stretching out before his fleeting feet. Seriously, he must have been dense not to have noticed the frickin' mile-long chasm sooner. Lance skidded to a stop only a few inches from the sheer cliff edge. Cliffside drop. His arms frequently pinwheeling, barely able to keep him from toppling over the edge. For a terrifying moment, Lance thought he was about to fall into the dark abyss below, but he was able to regain his balance when he forced himself to squat, lowering his center of balance. Center of gravity! And using one hand to rest on the edge of the rock, helping maintain that balance. He stole a glance backwards and gawked at the approaching lava. Shit, Quizmaking shit! Lance shot. If he jumped, he might not make it across the gorge. It was 30 feet across. But if he stayed... He pushed the thought from his head. Focus, Lance. No need to elaborate on that. Hearing the vigorous slither of popping lava, Lance decided to screw it and launches himself across the gap, his jetpack blasting to the max. Well, that's it for Chapter 2, Lava. Till next time, peeps. Jenny.